Good evening, aspirants. Let us discuss a couple of the science and technology questions that got reflected in the GS paper 3 this year, which in my opinion were quite straightforward and for any average aspirant with a normal thinking could have been easy to deal with even if one has not prepared for it. Take the first question. What is the technology being employed for electronic toll collection? All those who have traveled through the highways would have had the experience of it and would at least generate some basic points on it and some of the technical jargons. What are its advantages and limitations? Simple. If you just think into it, you can easily find out how it is a better experience over the earlier system involving the manual dealing of the toll collection. And then what are still some of the loopholes which are there? We'll work it out. What are the proposed changes that will make this process seamless? So are we moving towards a further enhanced system? Has been there in the news all around for quite some time now, for months now. So I think most of you must have already come across this news. And we will talk about what are the changes that are proposed and how these changes are going to make the process seamless. We'll look into that. And like any other technology which is value neutral, can have both the aspects to it. The simple ask of the question is, would this transition carry any potential hazard? You just have to list out some of the potential hazard that it has. Since it has not been, completely the norm of the day, it is more a prediction of the possible hazards that we have to get into. Let us get into each of the demand of the question and see what could have formed the logical points to be mentioned. But what is the context behind this question getting reflected? Few of the things is increasing number of private vehicles through which people are preferring to travel and increasing congestion on the roads, and also the availability of the new technologies for communication which is allowing us to facilitate the easier toll collection, more efficient toll collection, at the same time making the traveling experience better for the vehicles and the owners. Let us look into what is the technology that we use presently in the electronic toll collection. Unlike the yesteryears of the manual collection of the toll using, the optical scanners, today we depend more on a distant communicating units, one of which is planted in the vehicle itself as a tag, a rectangular, card, more like the ATM card dimension, 3:2, having a chip in it which has each details of the vehicle and the amount of money which has been credited by the owner of the vehicle. That particular card also has an antenna so that whenever a signal hits it, it can communicate the entire detail of the card to the another unit which is installed at the toll stations. This method of communication is called RFID technology or radio frequency based identification system. So what we today use is RFID, which you could have mentioned in the answer, which uses the FASTag card having both the chip as well as the antenna in it, and other than the chip and the antenna which is there in the FASTag, which is installed on the vehicle, every toll plaza has got a unit installed called the reader. It is this reader that sends the radio waves, hits the FASTag, and the details of that vehicle is transmitted back to the reader, while at the same time the toll fee gets deducted. It is also associated with, at the same time, the driver getting to be intimated through the SMS the amount deducted at each of these toll plazas. So that is the major mechanism through which we today collect the toll at the toll plazas. Coming now to the second demand of the question. What are the advantages and its limitations? So let us quickly look at what are the possible advantages of having the RFID based distant collection of the toll. First and foremost, it makes the entire process of toll collection less time consuming. Less time consuming. And that has a direct impact on the traffic flow. Traffic flow. So you see, an average time taken for the toll collection or the card to be read and the signal to be turned green for a vehicle is 3 to 4 seconds. And there are data which suggest that thanks to this RFID technology, the number of vehicles passing through each toll plazas have increased from nearly 350 per hour to over 500 per hour. So in a way, it has also increased the flow of the traffic. You can always in the answer connect with this point the further derived benefits for it. So the economic impact of it, the logistical advantage of it, the reaching of the different goods to their destinations much quicker, and hence the advantages associated. We can also say the convenience for the people. Convenience in fee collection. Convenience in fee collection. So, it happens automatically. You need not look for the change, you need not, engage with the person and then, delay the entire traffic waiting for the change to be available and all the different complications, if you remember having experienced in the earlier years. Fourth, you see, it also has less human interference. So less presence of the human required in this particular process. Straight one advantage that you can mention here is, it would be of huge value in reducing the communicable diseases. Let's say during the pandemics, one that we have already been through. We can also make a mention that the RFID cards cannot be cloned. Cannot be cloned. That's one of the biggest advantage. So there is no chances of forgery. Further, we can also mention that any violators, those who don't pay the toll or have the tendency to avoid it, can easily be tracked and dealt with. Seventh, the vehicle's detail like registration, insurance can also be concomitantly checked, and in case of violations, so in case someone going through the toll does not have the RC available or not updated, or maybe the insurance not paid, it can easily be intimated to the next station or to the right authorities to keep a check on this vehicle. So that way it is going also to ensure more safety. And one very important concern, people, is in the normal scenario or in the old conventional system involving the manual setups, the stay of the vehicle on the toll plazas used to be way longer. And that means with the running vehicle, the emissions of the vehicle used to be much higher compared to the higher flow that the RFID is ensuring. So that way, this is also more environment friendly. So you can sense, just by a simple thinking into it, these points could have been easily generated. In a way, the question was quite simple. Now coming into the other dimension of it. It is also asking for the limitations of the RFID system. Let me expand on the limitation a little bit. People, one of the biggest limitation, not only for the RFID, but for any technology and the over dependence on that, is in cases of the technology failure, it may lead to some very difficult situations to manage. So in case of technical glitches, which may be on any site, which may be at the level of the reader which is installed at the particular toll station, or even at the level of the FASTag which is installed in the vehicle. It will lead to complications and delays and congestions. Associated with the same technical glitches, you could have mentioned the multiple deductions which at times may also occur. So in case such a thing happened, there is not enough mechanism for the redressal of that problem. Second, the privacy of the vehicles and the vehicle owners could be at stake, as through the RFID, the details of the movement of each of the vehicle could easily be maintained in a database. Now, there is another issue which we could talk about, and that is the lack of human interface has a different angle to it. This means, people, the inebriated, the drunk drivers, or even some criminal elements which would have otherwise been a bit, discovered by the toll collectors itself, that the driver is either not fit to drive or maybe is an individual that later on the identification becomes important, could be a missed opportunity. So yes, lack of human interface would mean the inputs that could have been achieved at the point of toll would now go missing. And then as more and more of automation would lead to less and less of human intervention, you can understand it may be criticized for leading to the loss of employment. So these are some of the ways in which we can understand, which is largely true for any of the technology. I mean to say that it could have been easily generated. But then are we moving to a further better process? Let us have a look. As per the recent announcement of the Ministry of Road Transport and Highway, we are now poised to move towards a new system altogether. Instead of being dependent on RFID or the close distance communication, we would now move to the utilization of the global navigation satellite system in keeping a track of the vehicles. You see how this is going to be very much a different concept than what we have had so far. You see, few things are required for transitioning into navigation satellite based toll collection. People, it requires few components. One, the onboard unit, OBU is the popular short form that is being used. Onboard units have to be present on the vehicles as and when this particular ruling gets enforced. These onboard units could either be retrofitted, meaning in your cars or the vehicles you will have to get it installed, or in the upcoming times the vehicles can come with these units pre-installed. These onboard units would be in direct communication with the navigation satellite. In a way, they will be sending the signal of their physical presence on the geographical landscape to the navigation satellite. And along with this also goes the information, the vehicle's distance travelled in the highways. That is one aspect. Further, you would also require to have the ground establishment, which would be required for the geotagging and fencing of the areas under toll. So all these areas which are coming under the legal boundaries of toll collection would remain geo-fenced, which is to be done again through the satellite. What that means, that for any vehicle that enters into that zone or exits from that zone will get notified through the connection that OBU has with the GNSS. So what does this system lead to? This system leads to each vehicle leaving its signature of entry and exit in the tolled network. And based on this, the distance travelled could be calculated. So what we now know, just straightforward, we have to mention that global navigation satellite based toll collection, which will keep a track of each of the vehicles entry and exit into the tolled network through the onboard units installed in them. The same statement will give you all the information. And then the mathematical calculation of the toll based on the distance travelled. That is the system we are entering into. Now the demand of the question is, how is this process going to be leading to a seamless system? See how. First and foremost, we through this will enter into a barrier-free network. So unlike the RFID, which despite having facilitated from the earlier situation, still required the establishment of physical infrastructure, which now becomes redundant. Thanks to the direct connect through the satellite, the barrier will be the thing of the past. So that will be a barrier-free movement. In a way, for the vehicles, it will become a seamless travel. So how would the calculation be done? People at regular interval on the network, there will be virtual toll plazas, which will have the system to keep a track of the vehicle's movement and the distance travelled accordingly. And based on that, the calculation would be done. Third, connected to the first point, it will reduce the infrastructure investment for the physical toll plazas. And you can connect it with this. It will also reduce the number of personnel involved. You just keep, simple points of advantage that any, normal rational thinking individual could have thought of. How about the convenience? How about convenience, of course, to the public at large? Similarly, how about higher traffic flow? Something that was there earlier also. It is even better. Or how about the same point that you have mentioned earlier also? The environmental benefits. Endless. Sitting duck of a question, I must tell. Think of it. The real-time tracking of the vehicles could be done. Real-time tracking, that has its own advantage. And that data would be useful. So you can say, this can be connected, you could have written it as a separate point also. Data analytics. So that data is gold. Based on that, you can develop new traffic innovations. And then the most important people, any innovation has to be considered valuable if it has scalability. So with increasing traffic volume, since there is no load to create the physical infrastructure and the lanes, to accommodate that queues of vehicles, each vehicle is anyway connected through the satellites and the calculations are happening. It is highly scalable innovation. Scalability. So it is quite futuristic. It will accommodate the increasing number of vehicles thanks to the revolution in the automobile sector we are going through. So from all these perspectives, we can claim that this is going to make the process quite seamless. But then, as I told while we were reading the question, every technology is value neutral. It has got the different dimensions. So let us look into if it has any potential hazards also. So what could be the hazard? There are simple ones. Again, if it is technology, you can always say technological glitches. With respect to the navigation satellites, let's look at what kind of problems can happen. The satellite position changes may lead to accuracy errors. So it is extremely important that the satellites are at the right positions to create the triangulation to focus on a particular point. So that is one of the error that could be possible. Second, the weather extremes, like in cases of solar extreme, it will lead to the thickening of ionosphere. There was a question on the solar storm the last to last year. So one of the impact of the solar storm is that it thickens the ionosphere, and since ionosphere is rich in charge, it impacts the accuracy of the navigation. Rather, it leads to failures in the cases of excess. So yes, solar extreme through thickening of ionosphere lead to faulty accuracy. Then people, the areas with dense foliage, so forest area, or with high buildings, this is lesser, and hills, obstruction of the signals can happen. Obstruction of the signals, that can also occur. It is quite possible that the signals could be jammed. Signals could be jammed or interfered with. That could create issues. And the most popular or most highlighted concern that we have, that is being raised time and again, is the concern of privacy. With all the details of the movement of the vehicles, the data could be used by the non-government players also for some malified purposes. And particularly this concern becomes worthy of highlighting because India is still evolving its data protection law. So we still don't have a crisp data protection system. There was a question on this. So it seems to be a step which should have been preceded by the establishment of the data protection system first. But since we are evolving in both concomitantly, better it is towards the end or towards the conclusion you would write that India should hurry up with the data protection system in order to instill confidence in the people and to enjoy all the benefits that it comes with. So that is a big concern. So these are the different issues or hazards associated with it. Despite that, towards the conclusion you would write that it has far more number of advantages with the issues that could be easily tackled with and would further happen with the evolution. More so, if at all the space remains, this is going to be a packed up question answer because there are so many points to write. You could have written that the data protection law is evolving and the fact that the GNSS based toll collection system is being rolled out in a graded fashion. So it will first start on the greenfield highways only on the public transports and the trucks. It might then gradually be brought into the private vehicles also, possibly by 26-27. The government also has that hybrid system wherein other than the GNSS, the RFID would also be there. So in case of the initial technical glitches, the traffic will not come to a grinding halt. So that's this question's demand. Let us move to the next one. Now let us look at the second question. Like the first one, this also lays down the demand in a very crisp manner, objective manner. And like the earlier one also, you can straight away start with answering the demands of the question as there are many. The question is quite straightforward. Anyone having done the basic reading of the NCERT can go ahead and answer. First, let me tell you why this question becomes pertinent or contextual. Two things. Over the last few months, you must have read about the celestial bodies coming threateningly close to the earth and all the sensation that is created around it. As to if it hits, is it going to be the end of the earth and whatnot. And second, there is an age-old belief that you might have read since your childhood, I believe, that it was the impact of the hit of the asteroid which was the reason behind the extinction of the dinosaurs. Now, that hypothesis over the last few years have gained a lot of traction. There have been added evidences of the truthfulness of that claim. So both these things, they have been clubbed by UPSC and formed into one question. They are like, what are asteroids and how real is the threat of them causing extinction of life? It does not say humans, life. What strategies have been developed to prevent such a catastrophe? Let us again split this into the individual demands and see what could have been the straightforward answer. People, what is an asteroid? Again, as I told you, a normal, kids get to read the books on space and everything, well defined, or NCERTs. So what is an asteroid? Just few words. So how could you have created a value in answering that? Only if you create different dimensions of the asteroid rather than going into one direction. Let's look what. These are the rugged or unevenly shaped bodies or celestial bodies way smaller than the planets. So why are they not called planets? Because one, they are not, spherical enough, and second, they are way smaller than that. That has also got the implications of the gravity, which we did not enter into this. So that's one. They are of diverse sizes. They may be of a small pebble size and even running into hundreds of meters over a kilometer also. Hundreds of meters. Further, they are the remnants of the events of the past, like the Big Bang. So you could have mentioned in the answer, and hence their study could generate insights on the same. Since this is a question of 250 marks, it leaves you with the scope of adding more points. 250 words, it leaves you with the scope of adding more points. So you could have even mentioned, and that is what UPSC could expect, a mission which successfully conducted the sample return from an asteroid named Bennu. So this OSIRIS-REx had in the recent past completed the sample return mission. It has collected the sample from the Bennu, and the study of that could give insight about the events of the past. So in the astronomical studies. Now beyond this, you can also mention they are made up of various materials. Some of them might be metallic, some other might be made up of carbon based, some may be made up of clay, rocky, and so on. In this you will have to mention they leave a lot of scope for exploration of, or for the exploitation of asteroids for outer space mining. Just dropping the hint of it could add more value. So yes, small rocky substances, rugged shape, not spherical, and present in huge number, majorly between Mars and Jupiter. So that is also called as the asteroid belt, you could have mentioned. Now, these asteroids, which are, so before you come to the second demand of the question, what you could have mentioned, those asteroids which are at a distance of within 1.3 times or 1.3 astronomical units What is astronomical units, people? The distance between the Earth and the Sun, which is, to be precise, 149.6 million kilometers. So any asteroid which is within that 1.3 times that distance is additionally also called as near Earth objects. Just facts for that first part of the question. What are asteroids? And some of the aspects of it. You could, after having written this, straight away connect it to the second demand of the question. The Earth stands vulnerable to the hit of some of these asteroids which are in the NEOs, or the near Earth orbit objects. Now coming to the specific demand of the second part. How real is the threat of extinction? See how you would deal with how real. You would deal with this through two subheads. One through the past evidences, and second through the future possibilities. That is how you will establish how real is that. So in the past evidences, what you will suggest that the recent scientific evidences has been there in the news all through the year. You could have easily read about it. So in the recent evidences, it has been established that the Chicxulub asteroid of the size nearly 10 kilometers, having hit at a place near Mexico, over 66 million years ago. Those who mention Cretaceous period would get that little extra edge, but even if you don't. So this was the popular asteroid that is believed to have hit the Earth 66 million years ago, has been evidenced to have been the reason for the dinosaurs' extinction. And not only dinosaurs, over 75% of the species back then. So of the different theories of mass extinction that you read about, one of the most highlighted one is this, and there is a growing evidence of it. So going by this, how real is the threat? You can say quite possible. However, we will come more into it as to how probable is it as well. So future possibilities. You can mention that since the asteroid occupy very less proportion of the total mass, the occurrence of such an event is extremely less probable once in a few million years, as you are not expected to remember around 250 million years, which is the actual value. You will not be penalized for that. Just knowing that since asteroid represents a very tiny part of the entire cosmos, the chances that they will hit it merely by the mathematical prediction is way less. And on top of that also, the movement of the asteroid can easily be studied or tracked many years before. So two things. One, it is very less probable, given the less quantity that all the asteroids together don't even account for the total moon size you can imagine. So they are very less. And given the cosmos size, it is less probable. So you must hint that, despite that one evidence that we gave from the past. And second, that the movement of each of these asteroids can easily be tracked from years before or even centuries before, so that you can easily predict whether the path of these asteroids would collide with the Earth. Meaning, you'll have ample time space. Now coming to the third part of the question. Strategies to prevent such a catastrophe. People, to keep it practical, there are no strategies available for very large asteroid. Very large asteroid. In a way, the asteroids more than 10 kilometers or so, it will be the one that caused the mass extinction. If it is going to happen, it will lead to a loss of species without fail. But then for the smaller asteroids, there are a couple of ways through which we can go about it. One of the most popular is the DART method, or the double asteroid redirection test, which was successfully employed on a near Earth object, Dimorphos, which is a satellite to another asteroid by NASA. So this is exactly what the examiner is looking for. The entire idea was the Didymos was the asteroid around which the Dimorphos is the satellite asteroid that is revolving around it, and the idea was, using a spacecraft, we created an opposite impact to it, which made this now to start revolving in a different orbit. So what we will say is, for the smaller asteroids, the following steps could be taken. One, through the kinetic impact, wherein you hit it, but that is the only one which has been attempted so far. Other than that, you will make a mention. Also under consideration and under development could be the methods like gravity pull, where a spacecraft or any object sent by the human could create a slight gravity by going close enough, and gradually over years could deflect it from the path by using gravity force. Or you can say the laser based ablation, where you will fire laser beams on it, or even fire the solar rays concentrated on it, leading to its vaporization. No details required in any of it. Just mentioning few of the names is enough. And 4, even by the usage of nuclear explosion, but these are at this point in time far-fetched. We are quite distant from trying this out. Towards the last part of the question, you will mention, other than these strategies, what is very important is a collaborative efforts towards successful tracking of these asteroids, so that we can predict any such event as early as possible before we could plan some action. And then you could have also enriched your answer saying that ISRO through Netra has been doing that for good years now. This entire thing becomes quite contextual also with respect to the recently in the evolutionary time scale. It was earlier studied in 2004, an asteroid Apophis, which is nearly 3 to 400 meters, which has its orbit possibly coming extremely close to that of the Earth's orbit, few thousands of kilometers to that of the Earth by 2029. So this event is something that will be of extreme interest, could be even visualized with the naked eyes, and is one of the reason why the entire topic also becomes quite contextual. This could have been towards the conclusion part of it. Hope that helps.
We are going to discuss today the science and technology question from GS paper 3, question number 10 and question number 15. Now this is question number 10. As we can see, it pertains to our evolution of the India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act. So this Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. Now this act, it signifies India's journey towards free and fair digital economy, providing data privacy and also empowering the Indians. So in the current world, personal data is now regarded as, and also based upon the judgment of Supreme Court, it should be regarded as the extension of Article 21. If we look into the context for this particular act, so context was established first through right to privacy based on Article 21 of India, right to life and personal liberty of the Constitution. So in Justice K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India case, it was established. Then this was followed by another important context for the evolution of this act, and that was in 2017, central government constituted a committee of experts on data protection chaired by Justice B.N. Sri Krishna. So the committee came out with a recommendation relating to the data protection in the country, and this committee submitted its report in July 2018. So based on this now, later on, the DP Act that was passed by the both houses of the Parliament, and on August 11, 2023, the bill was converted into Act through the President's assent. Now, this legislation in India, it balances. So there are two important components in this act. One is data fiduciary. Another one is data principle. So data fiduciary and data principle. Now, who are data fiduciaries? Data fiduciary, so one who is acquiring the data, storing the data, processing the data, whether it is Google, Meta, including Facebook, WhatsApp, or Amazon, the big tech. So they are collecting our personal data, which includes our Aadhaar card data, PAN card data. Now, whether they are collecting online or offline, data fiduciaries. Now, the data belongs to, so data belongs to the data principle. So we, the users, individuals, so that includes the data principle. So this data principle means to whom data relates to. Data related to, and data fiduciary, one who processes the data or stores the data. Now, this could be not only some private corporation, like we discussed Google or Facebook, it can also be when the state also will become the data fiduciary. So some corporation also, which are mainly the big tech. Now, these data fiduciaries who are acquiring our data, processing our data, they have been entrusted with certain obligations, that how this personal data of the user will be used, to what extent they can store the data, to what extent they can use the data. So that should be based on lawful purpose. So we can see here now so legislation in India that balances the rights of individuals. So we need to protect the rights of individuals, data principles, to protect their personal data within the necessary of processing such data, and this data fiduciary obligations. So this data fiduciary, when they are collecting our data, there are two issues. One is our data safe in safe hands? That is related to data security, or there is a risk of data breaches of the personal data. So that can result in loss of financial losses or reputational losses for individuals. Now, if you go through the salient features of this particular act, highlights of this act. So this act, it will apply to processing of digital personal data within India, where such data is collected, offline or online, or even it applies to such processing outside India, those who are offering goods and services. So this is one important provision. Then personal data may be processed only for lawful purpose upon which consent of an individual should be taken. So there should be a clear, transparent policy on which there is informed consent from the user for what purpose the data will be used, for what duration data will be kept, and ultimately this data should be erased also. So there should be specified legitimate use such as voluntary sharing of data. So consent may not be required in such case. If someone is voluntarily sharing the data, so in that case consent may not be needed. Now data fiduciaries will be obligated to maintain accuracy of data. So data fiduciary, they have to maintain what? The accuracy of the data, authenticity of the data. Keep the data secure and delete data once the purpose has been met. The Act grants certain rights to individuals, including the right to obtain information, seek correction, erasure. So individuals or data principal. So this is regarding what? Data principal. So what are the rights? So obligations of data fiduciary, and what are the rights and duties of data principal? So data principal are the individuals to whom data relates to. So regarding this, the right to obtain information, they can seek correction of the data, even erasure of the data, and there is grievance redressal based on data protection board constituted by the state. Now central government may exempt government agencies from application of provisions of the Act in the interest of the security of the state, public order, and prevention of offences. So just like we have reasonable restrictions, so that applies in terms of the processing of the data, in terms public order or the prevention of offences. Then central government will establish Data Protection Board of India to adjudicate on compliance with the provisions of the Act. So these are the salient features regarding the DPDP Act. Then we have the question number 15. So we can see here the world is facing a crisis, a shortage of clean and safe drinking water, fresh water. Now what are the technology that can help solve this crisis? Briefly discuss any three such technologies, citing their key merits and demerits. Now, according to Sustainable Development Goal 6 of United Nations, so we need to provide clean and safe drinking water, maintain sanitation. So that is on the goal 6. So based on that, to what extent the people are still deprived of this clean and safe drinking water. So let's see this. So we can see here, according to United Nations, 2.2 billion people, they lacked access to safely managed drinking water. So according to United Nations, 2.2 billion people, they lacked access to safely managed drinking water as of 2022, while 3.5 billion, they lacked the safely managed sanitation on services. So the situation is going to be further worsened significantly by 2050, correct, if the current trends, they persist. So Sustainable Development Goal 6 aims to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all by 2030. Now, in order to overcome this, what are the technologies with their merits and demerits? Let's see. Now, first important technology So this is about water purification technologies. First one, ultraviolet rays based purification. Now these UV rays, they can kill pathogenic microbes, bacteria, virus, protozoa. Second one is reverse osmosis. And the third, we are going to discuss on the nanotechnology based nanofiltration and use of silver nanoparticles. So we are going to focus mainly on the merits, demerits of these. So ultraviolet disinfection system, it transfers electromagnetic energy from a mercury arc lamp. It damages the DNA, RNA of the microbes and can kill the microbes. So that is an advantage. It penetrates the cell wall. Now these, if you look into advantages, then this disinfection effective at inactivating most of the virus, the spores and the cyst. Then this is a physical process. This is what? So its advantage is physical process, does not require any chemical disinfectant. So this is a physical process rather than a chemical disinfectant, which eliminates the need to generate, handle, transport or store toxic, hazardous or corrosive chemicals. Then there is no residual effect that can harmful to humans or aquatic life. So these are the advantages. If you look into the demerits, one major demerit is that these UV rays at low dosage, they may not effectively inactivate all the viruses, spores and the cyst. Then at the same time, turbidity and total suspended solids. Suppose there is some impurity that remains in the water, then it will scatter the UV rays and the microbes will be now hiding themselves in that shadow where the UV rays are not able to reach. So this is what it says. So ultraviolet disinfection with low pressure, that is, it can render UV disinfection ineffective. So suspended solids in the wastewater can render UV ineffective because they are not able to penetrate and there is a shadow which is being created protecting the microbes. So we can see here that yes. So does UV light work in all water conditions? This is what we discussed just now. So UV light will only travel in a straight line. So any shadow obstruction will reduce its efficiency. So water that is not filtered can contain iron, manganese and other particles. So they are going to scatter the light as we discussed. So microorganisms, so either absorb or scatter UV light, reducing effectiveness of the disinfection system. So microorganisms are able to pass through protected by shadows created by the dirt or debris. So this is the major limitation of the UV rays. Coming to the second part, that is the reverse osmosis part. So first of all, we can see in case of osmosis, there is a semi-permeable membrane, as we can see, which allows only solvent molecule to pass through and not the solutes. Now in osmosis, in the presence of semi-permeable membrane, from the region of their higher concentration, water molecules, the solvent, they enter into the region of their lower concentration. That is the natural flow of the solvent molecules. So we can see here through semi-permeable membrane fresh water, it enters the salt water. So reverse osmosis, particularly in case of desalination. So this can be applied for what? The desalination. Of water. So we can see here, if we apply the same osmotic pressure, so we can go against the natural flow of water here. So from salt water, now saline water, it will enter into the fresh water. So that is said to be what? Reverse osmosis. And this can be used in desalination. In India, in Chennai, to a greater extent, they achieve through this what? Desalination plants to get the fresh drinking water. But at the same time, there are certain limitations and advantages of this reverse osmosis. So reverse osmosis, first of all, in terms of advantage, it is able to remove turbidity. So what was the disadvantage in UV rays? Not able to act against turbidity, it is able to act against what? Removes turbidity, including microbes and virtually all dissolved substances. However, reverse osmosis, a major limitation is that it also removes the useful minerals, calcium and magnesium. So we can see here, it removes harmful minerals, but also at the same time, so salt dead which is removed, but also removes what? Healthy minerals such as calcium and magnesium. Then reverse osmosis also causes the loss of residual water. So 30 to 40% or 20 to 30% we can see the loss of water in the process. So that is a reverse osmosis. Now let's see the nanotechnology. So nanotechnology, we use here nanofiltration. So nanofiltration has the ability or great potential in wastewater treatment. So nanostructure materials are enriched with unique properties such as high surface area to volume ratio, high sensitivity, and high adsorption capacity. So these are the extraordinary properties because of what? Nanotechnology. So nanopores, they can effectively filter out the pathogenic microbes, whether it is bacteria, virus, fungus or the protozoa. Then we can see silver, titanium, zinc oxide nanoparticle. Now they have disinfectant property. Silver nanoparticle, they are going to act as antibacterial. So silver, Ag means a silver here, so known for what? Antimicrobial activity. So this antimicrobial activity which is able to kill the microbes, so therefore impart disinfectant property to the water. So this we can see here, it can disinfect pathogenic bacteria, E. coli, Staphylococcus aureus. So that is the advantage of the nanofiltration, nanoparticles being used as a disinfectant. Now what are the limitations of nanotechnology? One limitation is that there could be ecotoxicity associated in nanomaterials. So these nanomaterials can leach into the soil or into the water body, they can remain for a longer period and they can interfere with the aquatic animals or aquatic life. So in ecotoxicity it refers to, as we can see here, the chemical, physical or biological stressors to disturb the ecosystem. So they leach into treated water during production, use and discarding of nanoparticle containing the products. So there are a higher production rate per year. So they are going to consider as a great worry to the aquatic environment. So that is a major limitation. Second limitation is definitely the cost involved in the nanotechnology. So these are the different methods of purification, the UV rays, the reverse osmosis and the nanofiltration. So this is about the nanotech. Thank you.